in order to do that kind of work in really productive ways. And that's part of our academic goal. All of that sits inside of and next to kind of our really strong, very long-term commitment to kids' social and emotional learning. And what's critical about that at Giddens is that because the school started almost 50 years ago, right, as a early child center school, it's always been focused on kids' social emotional learning. It's never strayed from that. It's never had a moment of thinking like the only thing that matters is academics, right? It's actually really thought academics really matter, and they matter in relationship actually to kids' social and emotional well-being, their health. And we also know that their ability to engage in academics is dependent actually on those issues. So for example, you could have a kid who in general finds school pretty easy, right? Comes to most tasks easily. And when they hit something difficult, they have to learn to persist. Learning to persist isn't just about, right, the academics. It's about how they feel emotionally when they come to the task. And part of what the teachers at Giddens are so skilled at is identifying the emotional realities that kids are in and the relationship that has actually to their academic learning and progress. That's central. All of that sits next to and inside of the school's really strong commitment to social justice. Part of what we're trying to do in partnership with you is help your kids develop their moral compass. What's right? What's wrong? What do I do when I notice something that doesn't quite fit right with my understanding of how the world should be, right? How do I engage? Not only how do I notice, right? But how do I engage? Those are different skills, right? It's both about noticing, understanding the way the world works, right? And also engaging and thinking about how you want the world to be and finding those avenues. And that social justice framework, sometimes we talk about that as the big J for justice, right? Kids who leave Giddens often understand something. In the adult world, we talk about this as like the large social structures. An example might be like, why is it that Seattle neighborhoods are organized, right, in ways that are based on race and ethnicity? Where does that come from? It doesn't just happen, right? And those are the kinds of questions that kids at Giddens ask and think about and learn about, right? They learn about things like redlining because it actually is the way that the world is structured, and it's actually in their own reality. And those are really important social structures for kids as they grow, learn to develop. That's also sits next to what we sometimes talk about as the little J for justice, which is how do I relate to somebody every day? How do I engage with people who look the same or are different from me, who have different family structures? Not only how do I engage, but how do I become knowledgeable about their experience and empathetic about their experience in ways that help us build a connection and in ways that help them understand that I'm their ally, right? And that's part of the work of Giddens. Those three things next to each other and situated inside of each other are central to how the school views your kid and thinks about children holistically. Your kid cares about all those things. They care about academics. They care and are interested in kind of their own social and emotional well-being, and they're navigating the world, and they care about fairness. I don't know one kid that I've ever met at some point in their life hasn't said, that's not fair, right? And we want them to engage holistically in who they are in the context of the school. And that's what really makes it unique. Again, our job today is just to give you a window into that experience. We're trying to help you think about what's the right school for you and your family. And we're really excited to engage you in that process. So thank you for coming. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Ken.
Thank you so much, Morva. I'd like to now introduce Brenda Cram, who is our Associate Head of School. Brenda, welcome.
Thanks, Ken. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm glad that you're here today. My job is, I think, the best job in the school because I get to work with the teachers around maintaining and advancing the intellectual and social climate of the school for the students, truly. And we work collaboratively and talk about individual students' needs and about curriculum to ensure that students are progressing at the they're progressing in their zone of proximal development, but also they're progressing with regard to standards at their grade level. And it is just a wonderful place to work. The faculty is super jazzed to get in there and greet the students every day and be engaged with them and learn about them, learn about their passions, learn about those inroads. How do I actually get to this particular student? Because I really, I need to get there. I need to understand what makes them tick. What's their currency? What makes them want to come to school? And how do I heighten that and ensure that the curriculum actually aligns with those passions, those interests, so that they love being part of this school experience. And I tell you, they do love being part of the school experience. And part of that comes from the connection to one another and the connection to the faculty as well. I have the opportunity to share a quick small moment with you, and I'm going to share it. It's about a student who came to Giddens School in the 3rd grade, is now a 5th grader, but at the time, the student asked to have lunch with me. And I, of course, said, yes, absolutely, I'd love to have lunch with you. So the two of us had lunch together, and she brought her ukulele in and said she wanted to write a song with me. So as we ate our lunches, we were writing a song. And I recognized that the song was going toward her experience as feeling sort of invisible at her last school. And she was talking about how at this school, she didn't feel invisible. She felt noticed and recognized and special. And the word special was the one that stood out for me, because it said that our social emotional curriculum and our social emotional awareness found that particular student's special qualities and showed them, presented them to other students so that she was connected to her group. And that's the way she's felt since. I have to say that that small moment hit my heart in such a way that I felt honored to work with this faculty. It is about social emotional learning. That is them caring for one another is an act of social justice. And the academic piece showed itself by her wanting to come in and write a song together. Her connection to music and the arts was phenomenal. So there's my small moment. I hope you hear other small moments today and that you get a chance to understand the true feeling at Giddens. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Brenda. Well, I'd like to introduce our 1st and 2nd grade teaching team. Excited to welcome them here today. I'll start with Zarina. Zarina, could you just wave and say hello?
Hi, my name is Zarina. I'm really glad that you've joined us on this Saturday afternoon, and I hope you please feel free to ask us any questions. Yeah, really nice to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Zarina. And then we have Leah. Leah, if you could just hop on and say hello.
Hi, I'm Leah. Also really excited for everyone to be here. I'm really happy to be at Giddens. I know I don't have there's not enough time for me to share a small moment, but there are plenty in my first, 2.5 months here. It's a really great place to be. So thanks for being here this morning or afternoon with us.
Thanks, Leah. And now I'm going to pass it to Brandon, and Brandon will share a small moment with you all. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon, will you unmute? Sorry. Brendan, do you want to come down the hall to my office so we can switch spaces for a second? Come on in. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Don't we just all love technology these days? My name is Brandon Farrar. I'm really honored to be able to share with you a small moment that actually came a couple weeks ago. I came to Giddens 4 years ago because I wanted to work at a school that shared my vision for teaching the whole child. However, it wasn't until after the pandemic that I really understood the importance of those words. One of the things that I've added this year is that no matter what I'm doing, at 8:13, I stop and I go to my door and I greet all my students. And I get to check in with them on how they're doing. And I have learned about uncles coming in for visits and beautiful unicorns coming in from Amazon. But a couple of weeks ago, a student came in with something which is a little bit more pressing. I had her as a first grader. And so when I saw her, I immediately knew that something was wrong. After a brief conversation, tears started to well in her eyes, and she told me that over the weekend, her cat had gotten really sick, and that yesterday that they had to put her down. And the family has had this cat longer than my student has been on the earth. And today, this day at school was the first day that she woke up without that cat on her bed with her. And as I was talking with her in the hallway, Annie, our school counselor, walked by, and I gave her kind of a knowing nod. And later on that day, I asked the student if she would like to speak to Annie about her loss. During three-way choice, a little bit later, where the students get to play in any one of the 1-2 classrooms, she went to Leah's classroom and made a papel picado in honor of Dia de los Muertos. During the school year, during this time of school, our Spanish teacher, Karina, talked to the kids about this celebration and the cultural importance of honoring the dead. And it gave space for our student to really experience the emotions that she was having. The next day during a morning meeting, she asked could she share her favorite memories of her cat. And so she shared those memories, and this led other students to talk about toys that they had left on vacations that they really missed, and pets that they had that were no longer here, and even grandparents who were passed away. I know that Giddens School Postal Service is coming up in a few months, and so I took this as an opportunity to teach about how to write a friendly letter. And the students who wished could write a friendly letter, an I miss you letter, to people or things that they have that are gone. Dr. McFarland, who was Fred Rogers' educational consultant from the University of Pittsburgh, had a saying: anything human is mentionable and anything mentionable is manageable. I am honored to work at a school that understands that the complexity of students' lives isn't a vice. It is a necessary component of a well-rounded and progressive education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'd like to now introduce our 3rd and 4th grade teaching team. So we have Maddie, and Maddie, if you could just wave and say hello.
Hi, I am Maddie, and I'm one of the 3-4 teachers. Welcome.
Thanks, Maddie. And we also have Jake. And Jake, welcome. And if you could share a small moment with us.
Awesome, of course. Yeah, I just realized I'm probably wearing that same shirt as I am today in that picture. So I think it's fitting there. But like Ken said, I'm Jake, and I teach 3-4 here at Giddens. And this is actually my 2nd year at the school. And I've taught at schools in San Francisco and in Albuquerque. And I have to say that Giddens students, they ask the best questions. And my small moment today is from a time a couple weeks back. We were in our first Spark unit of the school year, and we were exploring how a bill becomes a law. And students were creating comics to demonstrate their understanding of this complex process, and they were eventually going to teach the younger students about this process through their comic. So one of my students is coloring their people and comes up to me and says, or asks Jake, are there people of color in the government, particularly in Congress? And this turned into a big class discussion about representation. And, the class, we created a space where they asked important questions about why there aren't as many people of color in Congress, and then leading to a really beautiful discussion and realization about the importance of diversity and equity in positions of power. This eventually turned into a lesson a week later on reasons why the government should really reflect the people it governs. And I just think this is like one of the many great examples of how here at Giddens, we create a space that allows students to like ask these deep, meaningful questions, which really eventually just drive our instruction. So in my classroom, we have like a let the teacher know bin, or I want to learn bin. And from there, we can go ahead and talk about these topics that they are interested in. And as a team, Maddie and I can come back together and take these suggestions into our planning meetings and build units and lessons based on these ideas. So that's just one of the many things and many moments we've had this year here at Giddens in my classroom. And I'm glad that I can share it with you all. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Jake. Appreciate it. I'd like to introduce to you now our 5th grade teaching team. So I'll introduce first Alex. Alex, if you could just wave and say hello.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm really glad that you all took a moment out of your Saturday to come join us. And so thank you for being with us today. I'm the 5th grade teacher.
Thanks, Alex. And also Colin is our other 5th grade teacher, and Colin's going to share a small moment with you all. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks everyone for being here today. I appreciate it. I am a 5th grade teacher. I'm also a parent at Giddens. So I have a daughter who is a 5th grader in Alex's class, and have a son who went to Giddens who is now a freshman in high school. So have known Giddens as both a parent and a teacher. And in thinking about a small moment story, I also decided on one that is from fairly recent, from a few weeks ago, and has to do with social and emotional learning, which we certainly have a lot of opportunities for in 5th grade, all the grades, and there are weekly sessions that we do around social emotional learning. We have class meetings, but my favorite moments of social emotional learning come up sort of individually in problem solving and seeing kids make progress on things they're working on. And this is a story about that. First off, there's a book that we were reading recently that I'd read before that is in recent years one of the very popular. Some of you might have heard it's Wish by Barbara O'Connor, and there's a line in that where a character named Bertha says that you can't judge a person by their mistakes. You judge them by how they fix their mistakes. And I think when I read that, it really resonated with me as an elementary school teacher, because we're always thinking about how we want to help our kids learn from and fix the mistakes that they make, because we all make mistakes. So we had been reading that very recent. And then a few weeks ago, a student who is in my class that's one of his challenges is acknowledging sort of impact that he has, and when he gets upset. I got an email during lunch from our resident teacher, who's sort of a substitute and fills in and wears many hats and does many cool things throughout the school. Got an email at lunch because she was filling in for the PE teacher that day. My class had just been there prior to lunch, and this student had said something unkind to the teacher. And and the way she phrased it made me realize it must have been pretty serious. So I reached out to our counselor, Annie, and to Morva, and let them know, because I knew once the kids came back, it was going to be perhaps something that needed to be dealt with, and perhaps I'd need a little assistance with that. And so I was kind of like, not looking forward to having to face this, but I knew this is something that student really needs to work on. They come back, and after 30 or 40 minutes, I check in with that student, and just to sort of find out what had happened. he totally explained what had happened and said, yes, I've been feeling bad. I've been trying to find her ever since, and explained to me why he was upset, what had happened. Was totally caught off guard. I was by him taking the ownership, because this is something he's been working on. And he and I said, well, do you want to go see if she's available right now and see if you can chat with her? And he said, yes. And so he went down to the gym, found her, and was able to have the conversation that needed to be had, came back, and I could tell, like, just the look of relief on his face when he came back to the classroom, that it had been successful, but certainly checked in, and he felt so good about it, and it was great. And we were able to process how much it meant that he took the initiative to do that without somebody walking down there with him, with an adult or somebody, without having to have his family contacted or anything like that. He owned it, acknowledged the impact, and took responsibility for it, and apologized. And soon after, that teacher emailed and said that she considered it like settled, and how much she appreciated the way he handled it. And it really struck me as a moment where I was kind of not looking forward to having to like face this with him. And then it turned into like the highlight of my week, perhaps the highlight of the month. That's why I like chose this moment. And then sort of epilogue to the story was, in thinking of the small moment for today, I thought of that quote from Wish again, and how illustrative of that quote that moment was. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put it on a poster, I'm going to hang it on my wall. So I did that. And the very next day, just not more than a few hours into the day, that student was the one who came up to me and noticed that I had put that on the wall. And he said, I really love that quote that's on the wall. And I said, oh, I'm so glad that you said that, you know, like, does it remind you anything? And we were able to like then go back to that moment, and he was able to make that connection to how that was such a positive moment, and how he was able to fix his mistake. And lots of great moments in 5th grade, but that one has really stood out recently. Thanks again for everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, Colin.
What do you love about school?
Teacher Steve.
What do you love about Teacher Steve?
Playing with my friends. What's this class? Teacher Sheila. Char. I like to make oily and arts. And the best way.
Well, I'd like to now introduce you to Annie, who you've heard referenced a few times throughout. Annie is our school counselor. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks everyone for being here. Really wonderful small moments I've heard so far, and all of the reasons why I wanted to work at Giddens. I think it's really important to find a school match that fits with your values and how you want to move through the world. And I have found that as a faculty member and as the school counselor at Giddens. Just quickly about my role, I work in a number of different ways at the school. I work in classrooms to help support teachers and do in-class social emotional lessons that are very targeted to the needs of the grade level and the school in general. We build a lot of emotional regulation framework and foundation in the beginning of the school year. And talking about our feelings, learning coping skills, what works for us, what works for our friends, how do we navigate those really hard emotions that sometimes come up at school. So in every single classroom, we're doing lessons. I'm doing lessons right now once a week. And we'll be also doing lots of small groups that are topic-based small groups, helping to identify students' needs and help support them with those specific needs. So I do small groups for social skills. I do small groups for emotional regulation, anxiety, grief support, growth mindset. I have a really great growth mindset group going right now with some kids in the 3-4 grade band. That's really fun to watch them grow in their understanding of growth mindset. And then I work one-on-one individually with students who are needing some additional support because of things going on at home or things going on at school with friends. I work sort of on an as-needed basis for those kiddos. And then I also work to support families. So if there's something going on in your family, you're needing some consultation, some support around that, I help families navigate resources in the community and all of those types of conversations. So I am new to Giddens this year. I am from Seattle and really, really happy that I have landed at this school because of all of the things that have been already said. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Annie. Appreciate it. I would like to now introduce Katie, who is our mathematics specialist. Katie, welcome.
Thanks, Ken. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. So yes, as Ken said, I am the math specialist at Giddens, which basically means that I am supporting teaching and learning of math kind of on a school-wide level. And there's a lot of different components to that. One is that I actually just teach a math class. This year I'm teaching 4th grade with our mixed grade bands in 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th. We've found that math is kind of the one academic area where it doesn't really work to combine grade levels. So we do split kids into grade level groups during math. And so, for example, Jake and Maddie teach 3rd graders math and I teach the 4th graders, which is just so fun. And I love still having that connection to being a classroom teacher. But then beyond that, I'm supporting teachers' instruction in math so that all kids are getting what they need. So that might look like planning with teachers or even co-teaching with them or going through coaching cycles with teachers so that we're always learning and growing in our instruction. And then I work with kids directly in small groups and one-on-one. Sometimes that means I'm pushing in or going into their classrooms and helping them with whatever they are already doing with their teacher in class. Sometimes it means I'm pulling them out into a small group to work on, some foundational skill that they need a little extra support with. And those are always like very targeted and very flexible. It's not like you are working with me for the duration of the year if you don't need to. It's really responsive to kids' needs. Kind of the last component of my role is really looking at our assessment data and thinking about what it's telling us about our kids, what their strengths are, what areas they need growth in, where we might need to add in some resources into our teaching to support their measurement skills or whatever it is that the data is telling us. So I like kind of having that holistic view of our school in mathematics and love supporting both the kids and the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'd like to turn now to introduce Corey, who is our technology specialist. Corey, welcome.
Thanks, Ken, and welcome to everybody here today. So I'm Corey Cummings. I'm the educational technology specialist here at Giddens. This is my 5th year at Giddens and first in this role. Formerly, I was a 4th and 5th grade teacher. So in this role, I work and collaborate with Brenda, our associate head of school, and faculty on the effective intentional integration of technology into classrooms and as it relates to teaching and learning. And so that means providing direct support for faculty and students in regards to technology use, facilitating professional development for faculty, thinking around implementation of technology in their classrooms. We have a one-to-one device program in 1st through 5th grade. So 1st through 5th graders have Chromebooks that they have a one-to-one device program with the use of Chromebooks in classrooms. And so that really allows a lot of opportunity for students to collaborate with one another, to engage in collaborative projects. And so in 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade, there's a use of Seesaw as a learning platform. And then in 3rd through 5th grade, students collaborate and use Google Classroom and Seesaw as well as a learning tool and a collaborative environment for them. And so in this role, I engage with teachers in coaching conversations, running professional development, facilitating and engaging in co-teaching, and also just providing direct support with troubleshooting and any technology needs that are kind of showing and arising in classrooms. And so just a really wonderful role that I've enjoyed kind of stepping into this year and stepping into each of the classrooms and engaging with students and teachers and seeing the exciting and amazing things that are happening in curriculum across the school. So really looking forward to connecting with you all and excited to be here today.
Thank you, Corey.
What I love about this school is I love that there's really there's really nice people and they're very generous, and I like also that there's very good science experiments and there's very good stuff. I love the teachers in math and reading. I love OI because I love music. What I like about Giddens is that the playground has a lot of things for kids to play on, and I love the PE teacher, Bryce, because he teaches a lot of games, and it's really fun.
So great. Well, I'd like to now introduce you to Yuki, who is a parent of a current 4th grader at Giddens School, and so excited to have her here today to share a moment from her experience at Giddens. So welcome.
Thank you, Ken. Hi, everyone. My name is Yuki, and we have a son, Ringo, in the 4th grade, who's been going to Giddens since kindergarten. I wanted to share our story that shows you how much care and attention a student at Giddens receives, not just for social emotional learning, but also for academic development as well. Ringo was always a good talker with many vocabularies ever since he was a toddler. So it was a little shocking when his classroom teacher, Portia, brought to our attention that, he was falling behind in reading in the middle of kindergarten. Soon after that, the literacy specialist teacher contacted us and said, hey, we think Ringo could benefit from some additional literacy support intervention. And we happily agreed because, reading is such a fundamental skill for any learning, every subject, and we didn't want him to keep struggling with that. The literacy teacher pulled a small group of students to work in similar skills and build their confidence in a smaller environment. By the way, the teachers at Giddens do this in a way that's not shaming or negative. In fact, I believe it created more comfortable learning space for Ringo at that time. She and the classroom teacher assessed his progress every 6 weeks throughout the school year and adjusted the plan accordingly. They also sat down with us parents from time to time and went over his progress in great detail so we could understand where he was and how he was doing. So he kept receiving this support for almost 3 years until he was ready to join back his bigger group. And thanks to this extra support, today he's reading above the grade level. And more importantly, this experience really made him a confident learner that we wanted him to be. So I guess I realized my story is not a really small moment story. It's like a 3-year story. So I didn't do my homework well, I'm sorry. But I guess I just wanted to, share that Giddens teachers are very much committed to support each student with their needs, and they don't give up on kids easily. And, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Yuki. That was a great story. We really appreciate you sharing that. So now I'd like to pass it to Ina, and Ina has had at one point all 3 of her kids at Giddens School. One of her kids is an alum of Giddens School, and she is currently a parent of 2 fifth graders. So welcome, Ina.
Yes, thank you, Ken. And I'm happy to be here. And I have been connected to Giddens for a very long time. And I have volunteered, I have even substitute taught at different points in time. So my experience has been kind of all over the school in a variety of ways. And my kids have benefited greatly from their experience. And, and I think, you know, this last couple of years for everybody has been so difficult and challenging. And my 2 younger ones, Lisa and Shay, hadn't been at school since, March of when the pandemic got underway. They hadn't been back to in-person school. And so they had a little trepidation when they were going back to school this fall, and some concerns. While the pandemic was hard, they kind of liked being at home with mommy and all the juggle and showing up in my work meetings, as well as me helping them out and them getting to work together, because I'd split them in kindergarten into separate classes. And so they had all this cool dynamic, and they liked being with big sister. So it was going to be a big shift for them to go back to in-person school. But, it was really cool. I was about several weeks into school, and I had picked them up in the afternoon, and it was a sunny fall day, and we were driving home, and I was just smiling the entire way, because they were in the back of the car talking about their teachers and how cool their teachers were, and sharing how wonderful their teachers are, which is, and I'm glad they're here today to hear this, actually. And kind of one-upping each other about the coolness of their respective teachers. And they ultimately decided that if you could meld the 2 teachers together, they would have the most perfect teacher in the galaxy. And they both were waxing on the entire ride home and feeling so happy about their return to school. And part of it was being able to see their friends again and remembering what about school was enjoyable. But in large part, I think it has to do with how much their teachers connect with them and set a dynamic and a tone and an environment for them that makes them feel safe and comfortable as people in their school environment. And so after, being a little concerned and themselves being worried about it, they're having a good year. And there's parts that are always challenging and parts that are boring. But at the end of the day, both of them, when they talk about being back at school this year, they always get a big smile on their face. So thank you, teachers.
Thank you so much, Ina. Appreciate it.
What I love about the school is probably that we have so much free creativity, and that we learn a lot of things that other schools don't provide, and also just how good the school is.
What's something that we learn here that you think kids at other schools don't learn?
I believe we learn a lot about racial injustices, which I know a lot of schools do teach, but sometimes they don't go nearly as in depth as this school. And also, I believe that we learn a lot about the LGBTQIA+ community, which is really amazing, because they don't get much recognition, which is good, because then people don't know about them and they can't help support them.
That was great. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce you to Diane Wright, who leads our extended day and camp programs. Welcome, Diane.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad to be able to talk with you all. As Ken said, I run Extended Day, which is our after school program, which is fully included in tuition at Giddens. And I also help run the camps that we have during the school year for midwinter break and spring break, and the occasional in-service day and conference days. And I also run our Summer Blast Camp, which is our 8-week summer program. And I have been having so much fun this year. Last year was my first year in this position, and we were not able to have a full extended day program because of COVID, and mixing kids was not an option at that time. But now we have a full program in place and a full extended day staff, which has been wonderful. And we really do make a strong effort to have connection between the school day and our after school program so that it truly is a comprehensive day for kids. It doesn't feel like going to a completely different place or a place with different people or different expectations. Kids are able to stay with their peers, and they are with their extended day teachers, who many of them are at school during the school day as well, covering classes, supervising during recess, and helping out during some class times. And one of the things that I thought was so cool, I'll share a little small moment, was this year in our 3rd through 5th grade extended day class, kids had been, as you've heard in this meeting, kids have been talking about issues of social justice in the classroom. A lot of the kids had been engaged in some sort of unit and lessons about government and about like representation and things like that. So the extended day teachers brought a bunch of Halloween catalogs to the class and just gave a very broad question and asked kids, what do you notice about the things that are being marketed and sold for Halloween to kids who are, to kids? Like what are some assumptions that are being made? Do you see any stereotypes? What do you notice? And kids were quickly able to point out in these catalogs stereotypes of gender, that there was a section in some catalogs that were for girls, a section that were for boys. Some kids found some costumes that they found would be culturally insensitive or inappropriate. And kids were able to notice these things with just a little bit of guidance to look for it. And they were able to have a really in-depth conversation about what it means, how society is represented in that catalog. And then they also, on their own, were spurred to action and had decided to write letters to the creators of the catalogs to share how upset they were about these stereotypes and about the things that they were seeing that they didn't find to be inclusive. So I thought that was such a cool activity, and it gave kids this opportunity to continue things that they're learning during the school day and do things that maybe they wouldn't have time to do during school. Maybe they wouldn't have time to do like a one-off lesson like that. But in extended day, we can, and we provide those extensions. That's all.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was great. Well, I'm really happy that we are able to set aside some time during this program to engage you in a Q&A. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask, this is a great time to do so. I'm going to pass this back to Morva, who will facilitate the question and answer period.
Thanks, Ken. I want to thank the teachers and the families who came today and shared kind of those small moments. I think our hope is that you can see from the Giddens perspective that it's really an interdisciplinary, integrated approach to learning that is encompassing kind of the content knowledge that kids need, the support and development around social emotional learning, all connected to justice. And one of the things that stands out here, I think, is we really view schooling as a place of practice, right? Kids are practicing, right, and learning about mathematics and becoming mathematical thinkers. They're practicing about how to navigate relationships, right? And they're practicing about how to become agents of change in a world and think through things that they really care about and want to make a difference around. And that's really central to the way that we think about how to meet your kid where they're at and go from there. So we're happy to engage in any questions. We will answer anything that you all would like to ask. And so feel free to either put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask it out loud.
Hello, I have a question. My name is Ryan. Thanks for all these sharing moments for the teachers and parents. Currently, I have two boys, pre-K and also a first grader. Currently, they're at the creative learning Montessori school and planning on going to get in school. The question that I have is the reading and writing and mathematics. I know Montessori. Well, I do know that Montessori, they do teach certain way of reading and writing, especially mathematics. Like for example, mathematics, they use beads to do addition, subtraction, and even multiplication. And I was wondering if Giddens School does their own specific way to teach mathematical reading and writing. If they do, does kids like my child who transfer from other schools to Giddens, do they understand by changing the different concept? Do they follow along pretty well? And that's my question.
Katie, I'm going to let you take a stab at that and get us started. And then if other folks want to engage, I think teachers have a great experience about how kids coming from other schools translate their knowledge and experience into our context.
Yeah, hi Ryan. Thanks for asking the question. We have our curriculum that we use for math is called Bridges in Mathematics. It's a well-respected curriculum, and it is very much based on conceptual understanding and building that through a lot of games and activities, especially at the ages that your kids are, the younger grades. So the structure of math, a day in math, an hour in math would be like starting with some sort of routine, for example, like connected to a calendar, and then a mini lesson about a concept where they're maybe all gathered on the floor with the teacher doing some activity together. And then it progresses to something called workplaces, which is essentially structured math games where they're having a lot of opportunity to practice those skills. And there's a lot of hands-on, excuse me, manipulatives or tools, it sounds like, just like they're getting now. So I would say I do see some connections there to what your kids specifically are getting. And then just more generally, I think that when we do see kids coming in after learning math somewhere else, I think especially in the older grades, there's often like 3rd through 5th, sometimes if they haven't been taught in a similar way that's really developing concepts, sometimes there's a little bit of an adjustment there. But in the end, they end up really liking it, I think, and getting it. In the younger grades, I haven't seen, and other teachers can speak to this, but I haven't seen that issue with younger kids because it's just such foundational skills and concepts.
Anybody else want to step in? Leah, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Add something. I have 2 students that came to Giddens this year from 1st grade into 2nd grade. And I think maybe the first week they felt a little nervous about it. And I wish if Ori was here, she would say the same thing, but they've, because it's so conceptual and it shows such a variety of how to, manage or tackle a math problem. Kids feel that they understand it. If it's like we teach one way, we might teach it 3 other ways to solve that same or to understand that same concept. So if it's maybe the first time we look at something, it might not be like in their wheelhouse. They might not have seen that before, but later on that week, they might see it in another way and then be able to feel successful. If that kind of answers your question, Ryan, or at least for math. And I think literacy across the board, the way things are taught, good literacy is good literacy. It might be packaged in different ways, but we have a good literacy program at Giddens. And I think we hit word study and phonics more than some schools in the past. And so I think, again, good literacy and good math teaching might be packaged differently, but also back to Bridges is that it uses more mathematical terms and not like made up kid-friendly quote terms that other math programs might use. And so I think they do become more mathematically sound in their understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat about the mixed grade classrooms, the philosophy behind it. And so I'll just talk a little bit about that. And then we did make an adjustment in the last year. We have, one of the things I really appreciate about the school and the Giddens faculty is our ability to step back and reflect on the way things have been and whether or not we need to make a change, right? So schools often get super locked into the way they do things And then they are challenged sometimes to really reflect on that. So we took the last year and did some thinking about the way the grade bands were organized, and we made a shift there so that preschool and pre-K are actually separate and have been separate. Kindergarten, we separated out as just a kindergarten start. And part of the reason was feeling that for a lot of kids, they're new to school and they're new to the routine, right, of schooling in that way, and that having a separate space for them was really important. And then we currently have a first and second grade mix and a third and fourth grade mix. And then for fifth grade, we've separated them out. Again, that's another big milestone in transition. There's a lot happening around kids' identities at that transition from fifth grade to middle school. And so we're trying out what it's like for kids in fifth grade to be separated. But we appreciate and retained the mixed grades for a couple of reasons. One of which I would say is, first of all, grades are arbitrary. It's like a thing that we created, right? We just created it. It's just arbitrary notions about how kids develop in timelines. And so part of what the mixed grade does is it normalizes that kids actually learn at all kinds of different paces, right? That's true. So rather than resisting that there's a lot of variety and trajectories that kids are on, we kind of embrace that trajectory, right? We kind of say, oh, of course, there's a wide range of kids in front of me, because there is a wide range of kids in front of you at all times. And that part of the skill of the teachers with the learning services team support and with Brenda's support is really thinking about those differentiation models. The second reason is it's really great practice for kids to enter a space where they're kind of a newcomer. How do I enter a space where somebody's familiar with it already? What does that mean for me? How do I enter? How do I ask questions? How do I ask for help? And it's also great for kids to be the old timer in a space, somebody who understands the routine, and to practice, how do I welcome somebody else? How do I introduce them? How do I support them, right? And that's part of both. We want kids to have a repertoire that's related to leadership. And sometimes leadership is about following. And sometimes leadership is about leading in the traditional sense, right? And the mixed grades really help us with that. I don't know if one of the mixed grade teachers wants to chime in there. You all know it better than I do, but that's kind of the idea, right, behind it.
I can just speak on, I started at Giddens as a K-1 teacher, and last year due to the pandemic, I just taught first grade. And this is when we kind of as a school came to the decision that, hey, this actually feels different. And was a part of the process of getting a 1-2 grade band. One of the things I love about mixed age is exactly what Morva said, that kids come in this wide variety, and this is just us acknowledging that. And so sometimes there are things that we want to teach that maybe it's the idea for the second grade, but there are some first graders who are interested in it and want to participate. And so we can find ways for that. But what I like most about it is that we can help students build confidence in this model. And what I mean by that is, when I taught in the K-1 program, I got a first grader and she thought she couldn't read. And that was just her belief. And when you have that as your foundational understanding of yourself as a learner, you aren't willing to take risk. And I had a mentor that once told me that the purpose of education is to not raise your hand and get right answers. The purpose of education is to be willing to raise your hand. And we have to create an environment where risk-taking is safe. And so I partnered her with kindergartners, and they wouldn't know if she was missing the word or not. They wouldn't know any of these things. And she developed her confidence. And within a year, she got to almost on grade level, and now is on grade level. She's a third grader now. And it's because she was willing to take those risks. And so we can utilize those systems in the classroom to really help students find out who they are as a learner, but also give them opportunities for leadership and give them opportunities to help. And as a teacher, what I love is I've had some of these students in the previous year. So when school starts back, I can really focus on those kids that are really new to the program, and I can really support their emotional transition into a classroom, because that can be a really big deal for a 6-year-old. And so I really do love the multi-age system that we have at our school.
I know we're running out of time, but we do have a hand raised and we have a question still about Spark. So I wonder if we could fit those in.
Go for it.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go for it.
I have 2 questions. One is kind of coming in. and one is going out. So my first question is, I love everything that you're saying about, ways that you develop kids, teaching them how, what kind of learner they are and how they can be a teacher and the empathy that they can bring, kind of that communication. I wonder, what are you looking for in, if you're kind of developing those skills at the school, what are you looking for a kid that's coming in to be able to build on, what foundation are you looking for so that you can build up and develop those skills in them? And then my other question is, on the way out, coming in, especially as a transfer student, my son we're looking at second grade for him, and he would have 4 years at Giddens. Then, on the way out, what kind of support does Giddens provide to help them find the right middle school and, and find the right place for them? And is that, I don't know, what's the process look like for middle school?
That's great. I appreciate those questions. Brenda, I'm wondering if you want to take the first part of the question.
I have to be honest, I heard the last part and forgot the first part. Can you repeat that again? Sorry, April.
Oh, no, it's fine. My first part was just about, how I loved everything you said about, how you develop kids to know who they are themselves as learners, and then also, how they are as teachers and communicating with others. And I was just curious, what type of kid are you looking for? Like, what type of foundation are you looking for a kid that comes in so that you can really build those skills once they're at Giddens?
That's a great question. And I think it's a broad range. We're the kids that do well at Giddens are the kids who actually have a good understanding of who they are. They come to the table and can sit with a group of other students and be able to say, you know what, that's something I'm really interested in. That's something that that I think I know the answer to, or that I at least can participate in. And the nice part is that because of our social emotional curriculum and because of the focus on social justice and equity, when students come in at older grades, they are welcomed in for those differences or passions or desires to take part and tell what they know. That's interesting. That there's a curiosity there. So again, that's another piece too, is a curious nature. Like, you know what, I don't know the first thing about landforms, but that's what we're studying in school. And I'm curious to find out what is it? How are we going to learn about it? How are we going to go in deep? There's a project associated with it. That's exciting. That kind of curiosity is what we're looking for too. So there's that, it's a broad range. I can't say that there are we don't necessarily look at students and say, oh, you know what, they're kind of far behind in, they're maybe a grade level behind in literacy or mathematics. And that doesn't eliminate a student from being part of our community. Or they're ahead in these areas. That too doesn't eliminate them from being part of our community. It actually makes them desirable because they're coming with something that they're interested in learning, or they're interested in actually getting better at. So I hope that answers your question. I'm trying to do it in more of a broad way than specific.
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
In relationship to your other question, then I'll answer a little bit about Spark. You're at the worst moment as a parent in relationship to independent schools, because you're trying to navigate this essentially with no support from an institution, right? Like, you're trying to go through it and figure it out. The middle school transition, having gone through it for my own kids, both of my kids went to Giddens and transitioned to middle school, and now we're in, they're in high school, and there's a lot of support around the middle school transition. And that support is both in relationship to public school choice and it's in relationship to independent schools choice. Of course, we have more knowledge, right, of the way the independent schools are working and supporting people through that process. But your hand will be much better held in the middle school transition than it is currently being held. So, and Ken is the person. So you all know Ken. Ken's amazing and great. And he is the person who will help you, through that process and through that transition. So there's quite a bit of support in that place. Spark is really a central element of the school. It is the place where we think about very explicitly the integration of science, art, social studies, questions of justice, and really engage kids in project-based learning to put all of those things together. So in some other contexts, you might hear of this as like STEAM, or you might hear of it as like STEM work, right? And we've really organized this around kind of really thinking about the interdisciplinary connections, right, between science and art and a question of justice, right? And we have lots of examples of how that plays out. It's not so much that kids go to a specialist. There is a Spark specialist that's helping us think about curriculum, is engaging kids in those projects, but that those projects are connected really deeply to the content and classroom teaching that the teachers are also engaging in. Sometimes they're working through a rotation, right, with all of the teachers. Sometimes they're going to the Spark classroom. Like this week, they were working on their landforms this week and are really super proud. Somebody's building Mount Rainier and somebody's building their landform related to Mount Baker and somebody's building the landform related to the Duwamish River. And so that's super exciting. So it's a really integrated approach to how we think about learning in general. And it's really steeped deeply in the relationship between content knowledge and knowledge of justice. All of those things are intellectual pursuits, but it's the relationship between all of those things that matters in Spark. Super aware of people's time. I'm super happy to stay on and answer questions for folks that have them. I always want to appreciate the staff and faculty for being here, for taking your time. I feel really super lucky to work with you. And thanks to the parents who joined and shared your own experiences of the school. Deeply appreciated. Go have your Saturday. I will happily stay on and answer other questions that people are thinking about and want to know.
Yes, thank you everyone for taking some time out of your Saturday to join us. I would just add in closing that if you haven't joined us yet for an in-person school tour, that we hope you will consider doing so. You can register in Ravenna Admit, which is our online school application, and we would love to see you in person and have you visit. And if you haven't yet started an application, we hope that you'll consider Giddens School as a place that you will consider a great place for your child to grow and thrive. And if you have any questions along the way, please always feel free to reach out. We're happy to engage you. So thank you all so much. Have a great day.
It's like, who's going to
It's like, I don't know.
Who's going to go?
I just had a quick follow-up question,
Sure.
if that's okay. Hi, I'm Britta. It would be an incoming kindergartner and an incoming second grader. And I was the one who asked the mixed classroom question, but I think I'm wondering about her coming in the middle of, there's a whole bit familiarity with the teachers and the kids and the process and just sort of like she was in a Montessori preschool. She's now at Hawthorne, transition. But so, the Montessori thing, like that's all very familiar. And I love the philosophy behind it and all that. I'm just, in terms of that transition question, I guess I'm curious how other kids have adapted and if there's any other thinking around that from your side.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things I appreciate about the school is that it is a school that has some mobility in it, right? Where a lot of kids are entering at different spots along the way and some kids are exiting, right? And one of the things that's good about that is that parents are often asking themselves what's right for their kid in this moment, right? Mm-hmm. Which I find actually really useful and helpful. I actually always really want to help parents think about what's right for the kid at this moment in time, right? What's the right match? So it's not uncommon at all for kids to enter Giddens at different parts along the way. And I think one of the things that one of the teachers I think said is, one of the things that's great about the mixed grades is that everybody's entering that space, right? There's somebody new in that space. And so it's kind of our organization, our way of thinking is that we're always welcoming the kids into a new space with a new group of people, right? And so the kids are also used to that. If your kid were to come for a visit day, for example, I will guarantee you, if that were to happen, I will guarantee you that they will leave the day feeling like, oh my God, I made so many friends. Because the kids are so naturally kind of really welcoming and engaging. And all the years I've been there, and even with my own kid who transitioned from kindergarten to first grade there just weren't issues around the transition. There's worry on the adult side, but on the kid side, right? It's just not the experience they have. If they were to have that experience, we'd want to talk with you about it. And then we'd work through strategies, right, to support them. Not different than we work with some kindergartners and some 3-year-olds, right, who have moments of like, I really don't want to leave the car. I don't want to go to school, all of which is super normal, really typical. And we have strategies, right, for supporting kids through those transitions.
Great.
I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say something as a parent. Every year Ringo's class gets a new student, and I notice, oh, she's new, he's new. A week later, you can't tell who's been there forever, who's new, because they just blend in. And we immediately start having play date with new kid who just transferred to Giddens, and it's such a welcoming community. As a parent, I would be so worried, but like Mova said, I think, your kids will be just fine and really welcomed.
Thank you. I appreciate the whole thing and taking your time to do all this. Thank you.
Of course. Anything else people are interested in?
No, Britta asked and you all answered my question. So I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you, Britta.
Nice. Great. Like I said at the beginning, I really do think that, part of what we're trying to do is just give you a window into the school. We want you to have a really good understanding of Giddens. We think it's a really special place to be. We think we do a really great job with kids in ways that are meaningful and that we notice them and see them, and that we help them think about the world at large, which I think is a really important part of schooling and a part of what we hope for children. And so as you move through this process, which is long and arduous and kind of cumbersome and has all the things in it, we hope that you will reach out along the way. Ken and I, and really the whole staff, are happy to answer questions, happy to engage you, happy to show you the school multiple times. Like, really, we get that it's a really important decision, and are really open, right, to in that process with you. So thanks for spending some time with us today. We're looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better and getting to know your kids.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend.